So picture this. Your company gets absolutely hammered by a major cyber attack. The first thing you do, of course, is stop the bleeding, get everything back online. But what happens after that? Well, that's when the real work starts. Today, we're diving deep into the world of digital forensics, the incredible science of following electronic breadcrumbs to solve a digital crime. You know, this quote from Kurt Vonnegut it hits the nail on the head, right? It perfectly captures that moment right after a crisis. The fire is out, the patient is stable, but now the heavy lifting begins. For the investigators, it's time to roll up their sleeves and figure out what happened, how it happened, and, if they're lucky, who did it. And this is exactly the nightmare Hal Corporation was living. A vicious malware worm had just ripped through their entire network, grinding the whole business to a halt. Even after their amazing IT team scrubbed every single system, one giant question mark was just hanging in the air. How on earth did this happen? So we're going to follow their investigation to see exactly how the pros handle this stuff. Okay, so the very first step is actually a mental shift. This isn't just a collection of broken computers anymore. For the forensics team walking into hell, this is now an active crime scene. Every single byte of data is a potential clue, a piece of the puzzle. So what exactly is digital forensics anyway? Well, think of it as the spot where computer science and criminal justice shake hands. It's this super rigorous, methodical process for finding and handling digital information in a way that will actually stand up in a court of law. It's all about turning ones and zeros into cold, hard facts. But hold on. Before Hal's team can even look at a single file, they have to navigate a legal minefield. You can't just start poking around on company equipment. See, without clear company policies, a solid reason for the search, and proper authorization, any evidence they find, it's legally worthless. It could get thrown right out of court. All right, so with the legal hurdles cleared, Hale's incident commander, Paul Alexander, knew he couldn't do this alone. It was time to assemble the specialists. It was time to call in the forensics crew. And within this first response team, every single person has a critical role. Think of the incident manager as the director of the movie. They're surveying the digital crime scene and calling the shots. The scribe is the historian, meticulously documenting every single action taken. And then there's the imager, who has maybe one of the most vital jobs of all, making perfect, untampered copies of all the digital evidence. And now, the team goes hands-on, starting the delicate process of collecting evidence from Hale's infected systems. This phase requires some really specialized tools and super precise techniques to make sure nothing is missed or, even worse, accidentally changed. So this is what a digital detective's toolkit looks like. It's called a jump bag, and it's always packed and ready to go at a moment's notice. Inside, you'll find everything from special laptops loaded with forensic software to evidence bags and pretty much every kind of cable you can imagine. And here's the key. This gear is never used for anything else, which guarantees it's always sterile and ready for an investigation. Now, this is where things get really interesting. This is the first huge decision an investigator has to make. Do they perform a live acquisition, meaning they collect data while the computer is still running? That lets them capture really volatile stuff like what's in memory or what processes are active. Or do they power it down for a dead acquisition? That perfectly preserves the hard drive, but all that live data vanishes forever. It's a massive, high-stakes trade-off. Okay, so once a clue is collected, the mission shifts entirely. Now it's all about preservation. The team has to be able to prove, without a single shadow of a doubt, that the evidence they analyze later is 100% identical to what they found at the scene. And the absolute cornerstone of this proof is something called a cryptographic hash. The easiest way to think about it is like a unique digital fingerprint for any piece of data. You run a file through a special algorithm, and it spits out this long string of characters. If even one single bit in that original file changes, the hash will change completely. And this right here brilliantly illustrates just how sensitive that hash is. I mean, look at this. The text "hello there" in all lowercase produces one specific hash. But just by capitalizing the H and the T, you get a completely different digital fingerprint. This is exactly how an investigator can prove that a copy of a hard drive is an exact, bit-for-bit, unaltered replica of the original. It's amazing. So you've got this incredible digital integrity check, and you back that up with some good old-fashioned physical security. Every single piece of media, every hard drive, every USB stick gets sealed in a tamper-proof evidence bag, and it's labeled with exactly who collected it, where they got it, and when.
All this meticulous documentation creates what's called an unbroken chain of custody. It's basically a legal logbook that tracks every single person who has touched a piece of evidence. And trust me, any break in that chain can completely destroy a case in court. This is one of the most critical parts of the entire investigation.
All right, with all the evidence securely collected, preserved, and logged, the real detective work can finally begin. It's time to start sifting through potentially terabytes of data to uncover the full story of what happened in the Hale Corporation attack. So, the very first step here is all about preparation. And the first rule of digital forensics is you never ever work on the original evidence. No exceptions. Instead, they make a forensically sound image, a perfect bit-for-bit copy, and then they use a hash to validate that the copy is absolutely perfect. That becomes their working file. Next up is identification. This is where analysts use these incredibly powerful software tools to just comb through that image. They're looking for keywords, they're recovering deleted files, they're piecing together fragments of data. This is literally the search for the needle in the digital haystack. And finally, we get to the analysis. This is where they take all those little clues they've identified and start to piece together the narrative. They're trying to answer those classic investigative questions, right? Who attacked Halcorp? What exactly did they do? Where did they come from? When did it all happen? And the big one, how did they get in? And this is the kind of tool they use to do it. Software like Autopsy gives investigators this amazing interface to explore the file system, see a timeline of every event, search for specific data, and, maybe most importantly, recover information that a normal user would think is gone forever. It's like having a superpower to see the ghosts of data past. So, after weeks of this meticulous, painstaking work, the HAL investigation team has its answers. But the job isn't done, not even close. Now they have to communicate everything they found in a way that is clear, concise, and totally defensible. You know, the final report has a really diverse and, frankly, demanding audience. Hale's upper management needs to understand the business impact. The lawyers need to know if they have a case to prosecute. Opposing forensic experts are going to try to pick it apart line by line. The findings from this one investigation will literally ripple across the entire organization, from the auditors all the way to HR. All of this incredible technology, all of this methodology, it really boils down to one simple and maybe slightly unnerving fact. In the digital world, very, very little truly disappears. So it kind of leaves us with a fascinating question to think about. If these digital detectives took a look at your devices, what story would your deleted files tell?